Hello everyone. I thought I would take a quick moment to shoot a video here of the final steps for the Pong game. This is for anybody who might be having trouble with it or anybody that just kind of missed a class along the way. You'll be able to see some of the code that I used and also know how to hand this in. So here we go. This is kind of like the full game after the 4 classes and after the things I taught you. If we look at the backdrops, we can see that we have 4 right now. We have a title screen, we have a gameplay screen, we have a game over, and a win screen. The basics of the game, if you can get your game to say to somebody that they won or they lost, and you can describe what's going on in the game. So I guess the part that would be missing right now would be some kind of instructions. When I first run this game, you can see I have a start button, but I don't have the instructions. So that's something else you could add to your game. It would be done the exact same way as the start button, and it would tell people how to play and maybe what the objective is too. So let me kind of take you through each of the sprites as I comment my code here, and that way if you missed anything along the way, you can see my code and see what you missed. So we're starting with the ball sprite. We have 4 sprites all together. If you have more than that, great. Maybe you added some unique features, and I always encourage that. I'm going to go ahead and just comment my code really quick. So when the green flag is clicked, we're asking the ball to hide, and that's exactly what we would say. So at the start of the game, the ball is hidden. And again, writing these comments is going to get you more credit. So I'm also kind of stressing that part to you as you go. Here we've got different times that the ball is going to be hidden. So add comment. If the player wins, this will hide the ball. Oops, this will hide the ball. So you can see that's all comments are, is their English sentences that describe what's happening. Do one here too. If the game ends, the ball will be hidden. And that's just a matter of spacing this out so it looks nicer. There we go. Alright, so here there's a bunch of things happening in this stem. We're setting the score to 0, so here I can make a comment about that. We initialize the variable score to 0. There might be some other things you want to describe in here, like for example this. This will always start the ball in the center of the screen. We know that's what X0, Y0 is. And a lot of you probably discovered that the hard way, that was a really important line of code, because if we don't have that, the ball could be touching the red line at the bottom and then it's already over. We have things like the speed of the ball here. You're welcome to describe as many lines as you want. If you have 10 of these yellow comment boxes, 10 or more, I'll consider that full credit. Over here we've got code that is asking the ball to deflect off the paddle. So when the ball hits the paddle, we change the direction of the ball and add 1 to the score. And this code was from the tutorial built into Scratch, the turn 180, where it just kind of sends the ball back the way it was. But I strongly encourage you, if you still have time, to make this more interesting. Instead of 180, play around with what you can do with the randomness in Scratch. Maybe you can get a better bounce by choosing random numbers between a certain range, and maybe that will make your game more interesting. So that's kind of all under the ball section. Gives you a chance to see the code that I have for that. Let's switch over to the line, which is a lot less code. For the line, I'll just zoom in so you can see it really well. We've got when the green flag is clicked, we're hiding it. I don't think I'll keep commenting those because once I've done it for the ball, it's kind of obvious to everybody. And when I receive out of time, it hides. Okay, so those are 2 possible ways that it hides the line at the bottom. When I receive start game, it's going to show it, and it's going to forever look to see if the line is touching the ball. If it is, it's going to broadcast a message game over. Okay, so I might describe that because there's quite a bit going on there. This code will look to see if the line is ever touching the ball. Okay, so just an English sentence that helps describe that. Originally, if you remember from the tutorial built into Scratch, this said stop all, but I wanted it to go to a game over screen instead, and that's why it broadcasts game over. If you're looking for the broadcast and receive, you can find it in the events section. Super important to know what those two things do. Okay, we're going to switch over to the paddle code. Again, not very much code here. Let's take a look at what's happening. We're hiding it when the game starts. We're basically hiding everything except the start button and the instruction button if you have one. When it receives out of time, it's going to hide, and it's also going to hide the variables. So basically, if it goes to the game over screen, we don't want anything else on the screen. When it receives start game, it's going to show the variables, and it's going to forever set the X to mouse X. This is the only part that's really new, so I'll comment it. This will set the location of the paddle to wherever the user has the mouse on the horizontal plane. Okay, so there's a lot of ways you could say that. It doesn't have to be exactly those words, but you're trying to describe what's actually happening in your code. That is the purpose of the comments. We're going to go over to the start button, which has very little code on it. This is just asking it to hide when to show, when the game is started, and to broadcast the message start game when the sprite is clicked. So because this is a new piece of code that hasn't been used yet, I'll add a comment here. This waits for the user to click the sprite before broadcasting start game. Okay, and basically everything else in our game is triggered once it gets the start game message. Okay, finally over to the backdrops. We got quite a bit of code here. Remember, I kind of recommended that you put all the code under backdrops that doesn't have to do with a particular sprite. So that's what we see over here. We see a whole lot of code that really isn't sprite specific. So these are things that are done with variables and whatnot. So if we take a look at up here, we are initializing two variables to 0 or 10. You're going to make those whatever makes your game interesting. And then we're going to immediately hide them because on the title screen we don't want to see them. Over here we've got some timer functionality, so these two things have to do with time. Maybe I'll just rearrange this a little bit so the two timer things are together. And I'm actually going to bring this one over a little bit too. Okay. So the first one is our actual time decreasing by 1 each time. So I could add a comment for that. This will decrease the value of time by 1 each time through the loop. Okay, and over here we've got another piece of code that we should comment. This is looking to see if we're out of time. This code is looking to see if we have run out of time, i.e., if time is 0. Okay, that's going to broadcast game over, and we know our backdrops are going to change depending on what message they get. Finally here, we're looking to see if the player has won the game, if the score is greater than something, so we'll comment that. This looks to see if the score has reached the desired number, let's say. And again, this is up to you to decide how many points the person needs. Then we just have a bunch of when to change the different backdrops. So we've got when the green flag is clicked, we're going to the title screen. We have when we get game over, we're going to the game over screen. And when the player wins, we're going to the win screen. And again, we can see our backdrops are named these things over here, and that's how the game knows to switch to the proper things. So that's the basic game in a nutshell. It took us a few hours to do that. When we click the start button, there goes the ball. You can see it's going back the way it came, which isn't ideal, but that's the way the tutorial taught you how to do it. I'd like you to experiment with that if you have time and to see whether or not you can improve that. I'd also like you to put in an instructions button. And then the very final step, we haven't talked about this much yet because I wanted to save this for the end, is giving credit for anything that's not ours. So we coded most of this, and we don't have to give credit to the sprites that we used because those are things that are built into Scratch. Under the backdrops, you may or may not have to give credit to some of these things. This baseball one was built into Scratch. I don't need to give credit. That's part of the platform. The game over screen and the win screen I did get from Google, so I'll give it an example of how to give credit for those. And finally, the title screen I made myself, so I don't need to worry about that one. So basically, you're trying to give credit now to anything that you used from the internet. This is to avoid plagiarism and academic honesty. You're not claiming that these things are your work, you're claiming that they're somebody else's. So I'll kind of quickly show you how you'd go about giving credit. So here's the game over picture that we used, or that I used anyway. And if I go to visit on that site, we can go ahead and see kind of where this came from. And we can go and we can give credit to whatever site it came from. So here we've got this site that it came from here. And I'm going to show you how to do a professional citation. And here we go. I'm going to go use a site called Citation Machine. There's a bunch of sites you could use, like EasyBib, Citation Machine. And I'm just going to plug in some of the stuff about the website that I know. Okay, so if I look at this website, we can see that it's called dreamstime.com. They are the ones hosting this image. And you can kind of also see that there is already kind of like pictures in here of their website, kind of imprints. So that's great. And this is just an extra step that I can take to give even more credit for the site. So down here, I'm going to plug in the website title of whatever comes before the .com really. Okay, so the website is just Dreamstime. I'll just put that in. Take that out. There we go. The URL can be the exact link to the picture, so we can just take that whole thing if we want, and we can put that in. So I'm just going to select that whole URL at the top, and I'm going to put that in. And then the date accessed, I'm going to use today's date. That's when I went to that site. Okay. That's really all you're going to need. Official image title, don't worry about these things. If you plug in these three things, that'll be good enough for the grade 7 level anyway. We're going to say complete citation. And there we go. It gave us this. This is called a citation. And we can go ahead and say, these are the different formats you can put it in. MLA, APA. I'm going to use MLA, but yeah, there's different formats for different purposes. You can see it says works cited. That's kind of like another name for a bibliography. And we can go ahead and we can copy that citation. Okay, I'm not going to check my paper. It's because it's not really a paper that we're even doing. This is a video game, but now I have a nice professional citation for the picture that I borrowed. So what would I do in this case? I would go back to my game, and I would probably, you can put this kind of on the title screen, you could put this on the game over screen, or you could make like a works cited page at the end, so like a credits sort of page. So if we wanted to go ahead and paint a new backdrop, okay, and we wanted to go ahead and put in with text that citation that we just got, you can see it just ended up being really big. I might have to resize that and whatnot, but you would have some kind of page at the end that would have your citations in it. Okay, so I know Scratch gets a little bit tricky to work with text, especially when it's going to be super small like this. But I'm just going to keep making this smaller until it fits. There we go. Okay, so I might have a works cited title at the top. And that's basically going to be like a credits. You could also call it credits if you wanted to. You call it works cited more in like papers and essays and stuff, and in video games it's fine if you call it credits. You might also want to give credit to people in the class that helped you. Maybe somebody gave you some ideas for your game or helped you on the tech support side. So those are all possibilities. For them, you could just put in their names. But for pictures that you've used, then you can do a professional one like that for extra credit. So again, we can kind of see that it's now maybe we have to change the code a little bit again, because is that works cited page there at the start. No, it's not. We'd want it to go to this eventually, and you kind of have to think about, okay, when would I want to go to the works cited page or the credits screen? And that's kind of, if you think about it, it's after the game over screen, right? Or after the player wins, if you think about it. So what I might do is do something like wait 5 seconds after the game over, or wait 5 seconds after the win, and then I might switch the backdrop again. Now what's that backdrop called right now? Backdrop 1. We'll call this credit, or credits. And then I would need another looks, switch backdrop to credits, and then stop the game, right? There we go. Okay, I guess I'd want another one of these over here. Perfect. Okay, so then when you're playing, let me just try to lose really quick. It's gonna go to the game over screen, and then eventually after 5 seconds, it should go to the works cited screen. And again, you run into other things now. You have to hide your variables, you have to hide your paddle and your ball. So yeah, anytime you do one thing to a game, it definitely changes other things, but you will get higher credit for sure if you have a credit screen. I guess if you didn't use anything from the internet, then you wouldn't necessarily need to give credit if you did everything as custom backdrops. All right. Oh, the other thing is, if you can't find the pictures that you used, maybe check your history. I think Control H will pull it up, and then you can find some of the pictures that you used in previous class. Okay, finally, how do you hand this in? If you press the share button up here, that'll allow you to share it with your classmates. So you will get bonus points for sharing it with your classmates. I would love for you guys to, I'm going to give you actually a period to play each other's games. If you don't see the share button up here, talk to me in class. I'll help you get it. But that's not actually how you hand it in for marking. So if it's completely ready to hand in for marking, you've got your comments, you got your title screens, you got your credits, you can go to File, you can go to Save to your computer. That'll dump an SB3 file into Downloads. Then from there, you're going to go to Schoology. You're going to go to your courses, choose your IT course. You're going to find the Scratch game, which is currently due on February 24th, if I don't change that. And you click on it, and then you're going to see the Submit Assignment. And you're going to click on the little Attach icon. This will allow you to attach something from your downloads. There it is. And that's uploading, and you press Submit, and that will say that it's submitted on time. So that's how you hand it in for grading versus sharing with your classmates as done with the share link. That is the end of this basic Pong. I hope you enjoyed, for a lot of you, making your first game. And if you have any questions, just let me know in person or on Schoology. All right, take care, guys. Bye-bye.